mystery fingerprint, the little fingerprint that was found on one of the boxes in the sniper's nest, was never able to be identified until the APHIS fingerprint computer system came up later on, much later, 1980s, 90s, and they fed this into the system and came up with a positive hit on Mac Wallace. To certify those results, they chose Nathan Darby, who was a fingerprint analyst with 20, 30 years experience, Austin Police Department, to examine these prints. They redacted the 10 print card of Mac Wallace, and they sent these prints to him totally unknown. And they asked him if he saw a match. And Nathan Darby came up with a 14-point match to Mac Wallace, certified the results of the computer. Later on, they challenged Nathan Darby's findings, and he went back and he recertified that and found even more points of identification. So we have Charles Harrelson at the Dowtex, we have Mac Wallace in the 6th floor at the sniper's nest in the school book depository building. The role that Oswald played, I think, was just simply bringing the weapon. They nailed him with it. He was down in the lunchroom, and he knew what was going to happen, but he was removed from any of the doubt because he was being left down in the lunchroom. So also, if you notice, there were 2 people dressed alike that day. One was the famous photograph at the front of the book depository building after the assassination. They thought for years that it was Lee Harvey Oswald because he was wearing the same clothes as Oswald when he was arrested. It was not Oswald, it was a fellow worker. So there again, we open the conspiracy view. Did the worker assist him in confusing the public by dressing like Oswald, looking like Oswald, and did there 3 people, maybe, look like Oswald, dress like Oswald, and were seen at the scene moving around? That adds witness confusion, and it's not testifiable, it's not trackable in court. We could never throw those 3 in a lineup dressed alike and get a witness to pick them out of a crowd. So that's my theory in a nutshell, that there were more than 2 shots. The number of shots is still up to question, and why weren't they picked up? We found out that the dictabelt recording that supposedly recorded the actual gunshots from the Dallas police officer's motorcycle voice radio was not at Dealey Plaza at the time the shooting actually occurred. So the dictabelt, of course, is not usable. We're going again by witness statement only. And if you talk to the many witnesses, there is conjecture and differences in their opinion of how many shots. One thing that I hinge all of this on, and I was very lucky to meet Nellie Connolly herself. She was working on a book called Houston City in Motion, and I did a cowboy scene for him that's in the book. And Nellie Connolly told me certifiably, and John Connolly spoke about it many times, that he was not hit by the first shot. And he was positive of that. He went to his grave holding on to that. Nellie Connolly was the same way. They have a still shot, and they allege that it was the first shot because you see Connolly's lapel pulled up this way. But if you watch me when I turn in my seat, the seat belt changes and moves as I turn. That doesn't mean that a bullet's tracing through my body right now. It just means that I'm moving. And John Connolly was moving. He heard the first shot, he turned to the right, turned back to the left. So that's the theory in a nutshell on the John F. Kennedy assassination.
Well, that's really an interesting summation. And what do you think of the Warren Commission? You know, there's a stake in that here locally because President Ford was on the Warren Commission and he was the last surviving member of it. And he went to his grave saying that basically the Warren Commission got it right, that there was one shooter, one assassin of John F. Kennedy, and his name was Lee Harvey Oswald. Jim, tell us again from your perspective, law enforcement and Texas law enforcement in particular, what is wrong with the Warren Commission report?
In the Warren Commission report, and my hat's off to President Ford, he got dealt some pretty heavy things when he took over, and I admire him. He was a very, very honest and straight up man. Sometimes when juries are told things in a courtroom, they believe evidence that sometimes is just not right. And we've all seen people convicted of crimes, and then later, because of DNA or whatever, we find out that the jury didn't come to the right decision. So I believe that President Ford did the very best job that he could. I think that he understood a need, and maybe we don't look at that so importantly now because we're not in those times, but they needed to get this done. And I think he went off the best evidence that he had, and in his heart, as you allege when he went to his grave, I believe that he made the right decision in his heart for the country at that time. Whatever that means to him, I know what it means to me. Sometimes a president has to do things and they stick with their guns, and I admire him about that. So I think the Warren Commission report, it's blatant to see that there were flaws in it. A lot of the witnesses were not interviewed. Things were overlooked. Some of the evidence, the important evidence, was not testified to. So I doubt the validity of their findings. And again, every member on the Warren Commission, I would never doubt what they did or their integrity. I think it was a situation in time where men had to do what they thought was right for the country and believe the evidence that they saw brought before their face.
So please summarize who shot Kennedy and the motive behind it.
Well, I believe there were multiple motives. One motive, of course, LBJ himself, who had a severe hatred for John Kennedy and his policies. He also wanted to be president worse than anything, and in his own words, he would do anything that it took to get there. He was infuriated by the way Kennedy treated him at the White House, treating him like a dog, a second stepchild, didn't want to talk to him, wouldn't allow him in the Oval Office. That's certainly one person. The other, you had many CIA agents and people that worked covert operations at that time because of the Bay of Pigs invasion. A lot of the Cubans were mad. So the main focus, of course, was on organized crime. And at that time, the mafia was big in the United States. They made no bones about it, and whether it holds up in history or not, the truth remains, all of them, the major players, believed that they got John F. Kennedy elected. First thing he did was to begin to put his brother Bobby in the Attorney General's slot and start going after him with a vengeance, and pretty much slap him in the face. There was a meeting called Appalachia in Las Vegas, and whether it could ever be certified or not, the allegation was made that Jack Ruby came into this picture because he had a stripper working for him at his club in Dallas by the name of Candy Cane, that was her nickname, who looked exactly like Marilyn Monroe. John F. Kennedy had a fetish for Marilyn Monroe, which is no secret to anybody. And he brought Candy Cane to Appalachia as a gift for John F. Kennedy by organized crime. In other words, to heal the wounds, seal this up, get your brother to back off, come on and let's be buddies again. They thought that it worked, and apparently it didn't, because Bobby came right back after organized crime again with a vengeance. And the plan was developed by many people. First gun team, I think, was completely unknown to the LBJ Ruby organized crime cabal. This was the group of Cubans in Florida that were arrested just a few days before the actual assassination, November 22nd, 1963. And the second group was the main unit who brought this to Texas because LBJ was there to control the evidence. He was there to control Hoover, and Hoover was there to control all of the evidence and all of the aftermath of the assassination. Boil it down, get it done, put it in the commission report, and let's get off of this and get on with the business of the country. So those are my theories in encapsulation, I guess, on that.